Krsna, everybody. So if we were in the rest of the country right now, I would say thank you all for duking it out against the incredible blizzard-like conditions and the deep freeze that everyone else is. But luckily, so Advaita Acharya decided to show mercy to Florida. While everywhere else is in the single digits, we are in a nice balmy 80 degrees. And it looks like it's going to stay that way. So,
No, it's not.
It's not. It's going to get cold on like Tuesday.
okay, it's going to get cold. It's going to get Florida's version of cold. We'll just say, let's say a little prayer to Advaita Acharya. Thank you for not sending it to the single digits. Even in Celsius, it will not go to the single digits for Florida. So we at least have that little mercy for today. But of course, we are going to be talking about Advaita Acharya because it is his appearance day. And I know we all have to suffer through cold weather. We have to do a half-day fast. We're fine. But before we actually go ahead and talk about Advaita Acharya, of course, let's start off with our invocation prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshudam Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhisham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Jagamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Radha Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vikantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinyanando Jagatpate Golokesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda Namostute Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Paramani Hari Priye Panchadamaya Sukha Sindhu Paritanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srimasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnuvardhaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine. So, it is the grand appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya. Now, this figure, this personality, is extremely important to us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas in particular. In fact, we owe many things to Sri Advaita Acharya. And today, we're going to highlight a lot of a couple of his pastimes, his appearance, and then also his demeanor, his mood. A lot of these things that we can incorporate when we're practicing and lessons that we can learn as we practice our bhakti. So the first thing is, okay, we want to talk about this personality. It's his appearance day. But first, who is Advaita Acharya? And we have to specifically know, like, what personality does he represent? So here's a question for you all. He is a part of, you could say, a set of personalities. What is that set of personalities referred to as? Palash Prabhu.
I know, like, Mahavishnu and Sadashiva.
Yes, but first, who is, like, what set? Who are his associates? When we recite prayers to him, who do we normally?
Oh, the Panchatattva.
Very good. So he is one of the 5 truths. The 5 truths being the Panchatattva, 5 truths. Now, of course, at the head of the Panchatattva, we have Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So for Krishna Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, he is Krishna himself. But he is Krishna, and of course, as we understand, this is Krishna in the mood of a devotee. Krishna in the mood of Radharani, the mood of that servant. And then you have his primary expansion, which is Lord Nityananda, who is a representative of Balaram, the Lord's devotee, the Adi Guru. And then, of course, you have now who we are celebrating today on the far, all of you will be the far left. For me, it's the far right. But we are obviously celebrating the appearance day of Advaita Acharya, the incarnation of a devotee. And we have a little spoiler, thank you, Kailash, but we're going to talk about who he is specifically. And then, of course, we have, on the opposite side, we have Srivas, who is the representation of a pure devotee, and then Sri Gadadhar, who is the devotional energy of the Lord, i.e. this is Radharani. But let's focus in on one of the 5 truths. We're focusing in on Sri Advaita Acharya. So if you break down the name, so Advaita, meaning non-dual, and then Acharya obviously referring to teacher, non-duality. Why would we refer to him as Advaita? Non-duality. Or another way you could say is non-different. Why would he be called non-different?
Is Vishnu Tattva?
Yes. He is non-different from the Supreme Lord because, as we're going to find out in a second, he actually is the Supreme Lord. So he's non-different. Now, do we have, Max, the wireless mics floating around?
Yeah, a couple.
Rajendra Kumar. Perfect. Would you like to please recite this verse for me and translation?
Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Maya.
Yeah, everyone repeat. Why not?
Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Maya Srijati Ada Tasya Vartara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create cosmic world through the actions of Maya.
So there we have it. Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu, the ultimate source of at least material creation. So when you look at the breakdown of how the entire manifestation, both spiritual and material worlds are manifest, we can understand that in the spiritual world, this comprises roughly 75% of Krishna's energy. But then in the Mahatattva, the material cloud, that is where Mahavishnu resides, and that is 25% of the Lord's energy. However, the caveat being, this is 75% and 25% of infinity. So does anyone want to do the math? What's 25% of infinity?
Infinity.
What's 75% of infinity?
Infinity.
What's 25% of infinity plus 75% of infinity?
Infinity and beyond.
And beyond, yes. Thank you, Prabhu. So functionally, there is no end. But then again, we are trying to understand cosmic levels of the universe, universe is plural, the world, with a brain that can barely function at 11% most of the time. So luckily, Srila Prabhupada just made the translations of the Vedic text very easy for us to boil down. So 75% of the spiritual world, 25% of the material world. It's big, it's ever expanding, our brains can't comprehend it. But in the material cloud, this is where Mahavishnu lies. Now, this specific, in the Mahatattva, inside the Mahatattva, or this cloud, we have the causal ocean, or as it's also known as the Krsna. This is an infinite ocean where Mahavishnu will rest. And as he is resting, he is breathing in and out, in and out. And from every single pore from his body, do we have any doctors or anyone who's done basic, like human biology? Do we know how many pores we have in the human body? Anyone want to do a quick search with Google Acharya? How many pores on the human body? We're not even talking about Mahavishnu. We're just talking about on the standard run-of-the-mill human body. Krishna, I think, is on it. How many pores?
5 billion pores.
5 million pores. And that is just on a one singular lowly human being. So now we go up to the grand cosmic scale of the entire source of the entire material cosmos. The number of pores are infinite. And in the same way, as he is breathing out, as he exhales, constant number of innumerable universes are emanating from those pores. And just as easily as they emanate as he exhales, as soon as he inhales, everything goes back inside. Anyone want to try that? Try creating a bunch of material universes by exhaling. Anyone have any success? No? So, there's even, so what to say, like the best we can get is maybe you might get like a couple beads of sweat that come out, and maybe inside that bead of sweat you might have a small little micro colony of bacteria, and that's your little universe that you get to lord over. And that's the kind of the mentality that the reason why we're in the material world in the first place. We want to be lording over material nature. We want to be the master. But ultimately, we can't even create a multitude of universes like Mahavishnu. Like I said, the best we can do is a few sweat pores that are pushed out of our body, and we have a bunch of little bacteria living in there. That's the closest we can get. It's not very impressive. But of course, what to say when I'm talking about Mahavishnu. So as he inhales and exhales, this is constantly happening. And the jivas that live in the material world will reside inside his body after he brings them back in. And then if it's still their time, they have to, they did their crime, so they have to do their time. Exhales out, they repopulate the material universes, and they continue the cycle over and over again until, of course, they can potentially break this cycle. But it's not just his action of breathing out and the pores emanate with fully stocked everything. Just like if you go online, you type into Amazon, let's talk about like our friends up to the north, we're freaking out about the weather. I need a fully stocked, like prepped box that has toilet paper, canned food, bread, all the things I need to survive the next week of this cold storm, and then the box arrives with everything you need. When Mahavishnu exhales, those universes are created, but they start out empty, so to speak. I'm saying that everything isn't there, but they need to be propagated. So, from his glance, after he exhales and all these universes emanate from his body, his glance across the entire Mahatattva, throughout the causal ocean, as he looks at every single universe, that is that life-giving seed that then enters into each of those individual universes, and then from there, you have Vishnu once again laying on his serpent. From his navel, Brahma emerges, and then from Brahma, the entire that at least individual material universe is created. And this is going unlimitedly, or at least 25% of infinity. Now, for the residents of the spiritual world, as we said, like I said earlier, the Mahatattva, this material universe, it just looks like a dark cloud in the sky. But if you're on the inside, let's say you're on the inside of this, instead of just looking like a big old cloud like a ship, it's more like a river. In fact, that's why it's referred to as the Viraja River. And this actually comes into play a little bit later in terms of who Advaita Acharya is as a personality. Because Advaita Acharya is referred to in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita as Mahavishnu. He is an incarnation of Mahavishnu. Perfect. This is a bona fide source. Excellent. Who wrote the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita? Very good. Okay, so do we like to think that Sri Krishnadas is a bona fide source?
Yes.
It didn't sound very convincing.
Yes.
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 You have to have firm faith in your sources, not wishy-washy. It's not Wikipedia. But there's another source that also writes a lot about Sri Mahaprabhu and his associates. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, was written by who? It is said that Advaita Acharya is Sadashiva. So Sadashiva is the supreme form of Shiva. You have his demigod expansion, which is in every single universe, just like Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is present within every single universe. But Sadashiva is the eternal cosmic form of Shiva, who resides on Mount Kailash, on the opposite side of the banks of the Viraj River in this material cloud. So this is also a supreme form. Now, at this point, you're going to probably say, wait. 2 slides ago, you just said that Advaita Acharya was Mahavishnu. But now you're telling me that he is Sadashiva. The math is not mathing. It's not adding up.
Spiritual math.
Exactly. Spiritual math is not quite there yet, but just see. So, just as we understand, Shiva is actually an expansion from Vishnu. So their reference is obviously, of course, when you have milk, and milk is Vishnu. When you curdle that milk, you add culture to it, it becomes what? Yogurt. Is that yogurt still a dairy product?
Yes.
Yes. Can you turn yogurt back into milk? No. So it is from the same source. However, it is at this point different. Now, specifically, if we're referring to not demigod Shiva, who's residing in each individual universe, but we're referring to Sadashiva. Sadashiva is Lord Vishnu's glance across every single material universe. So Mahavishnu's glance, that is the curdling process. So just picture in your brain, as soon as Mahavishnu looks out across, you add some bacteria culture, you boil it a little bit, mix it up, yogurt. Sadashiva. So that is how Advaita Acharya can be both. He is the glance of Mahavishnu, and the glance of Mahavishnu is Sadashiva. And then there's actually even more ways to prove that, yes, he's not only Mahavishnu, which I'll get into another instance of where he's sort of demonstrating his personality as such, but also as a personality referring specifically to Sadashiva, and that actually comes from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary on Adi Lila 12:17, so from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually writes a decent description about Advaita Acharya, his family, and specifically also his sons. And his firstborn son from his wife, who is, start with an S, Sita Devi. Yes, thank you, Abhi. So, Sita Devi, her firstborn son, Achyuta is his name. He is also a follower and devotee of Mahaprabhu. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes that Achyuta is actually also to be understood as an incarnation of Kartikeya. Who is Kartikeya? Shiva's son. So there you go. So all the family ties are starting to connect. The math is now mathing. We can understand this connection. But okay, so however, this is just his personality, and it's actually important to understand this, because understanding his position as Mahavishnu, we should know how this material world works. You can't get out of a maze unless you know the layout, unless you can understand the maker. Or especially, let's say you're solving a riddle or a puzzle, it's like, okay, this person who wrote this is known for this type of alliteration, these kind of clues. You're understanding the work of the maker, ultimately, so that we can break the puzzle and get out of this maze that's created. But it is important that we understand why we're here and how Krishna has manifested all of these energies to create this material world. But let's actually now go talk about Advaita Acharya's appearance in this material world. And talking about his appearance, we're also going to be looking more so at what is the state of the world right now. And specifically, we're going to be going all the way over to Bengal. Specifically, in Bengal, we're actually going to Bangladesh. Before it was its own separate nation. Because Advaita Acharya appears in this region of Bengal, in Bangladesh. The specific location is called Lodhagram, and it's actually only about 3 miles from the Indian border, the modern day Indian Bangladeshi border. And this is interesting too, if you want to think about who is Advaita Acharya again? Mahavishnu and Sadashiva, very good. Where does Mahavishnu reside? And yes, in the Karnataka Ocean, which is also referred to as the Viraj River. And Advaita Acharya's home is actually also right on the border along a riverbank. So it's also very interesting. He's on the border of a country, right along a river, just as his cosmic counterpart, Mahavishnu, is as well. But he would only stay there for his young youth, but then of course he would move to Shantipur, which is actually a town which roughly, as the crow flies, I believe is 12 kilometers or so, which you want to do the math and convert that in, but as it's described in multiple places, most of the rest of the world uses kilometers, so we're going to use kilometers too. Right about yay. So if, please mind, I am a fan of old style maps, so this is actually an 1800s British map of the territory. So instead of Nadia, it's Nudia. So Nadia, or Mayapur area, is Nudia. So just say that in a very gruff British accent. And then 12 kilometers south is where you have Shantipur, and this is where Advaita Acharya would have his residence. And he, if you want the specific years, 1434 was the year of his appearance, based on the Gregorian calendar, and then he would leave this world in 1559. Does anyone want to do the math for me? How old was Advaita Acharya roughly at the time of his disappearance from this world? 125. Thank you very much. Very good. Good marks. Good. So, 125. Anyone have any aspirations to reach that age? No? Why not?
I think Krishna was 125, right? I think close to 125. I think that he left his body.
So the mentality to have is, obviously we don't want to suffer old birth, death, old age, and disease. However, as long as our bodies are physically able to chant or at least think the Mahamantra, that's all you need. Age is not a barrier. Look at Srila Prabhupada. He was able to do so much stuff that even now, me in my early 30s, I can't even imagine doing. What to speak of a man in his 70s who is able to conquer the entire planet. So, age is just a number. And of course, Advaita Acharya is a very loud and forceful personality who age did not at all affect his pastimes. And even then, thinking about his appearance, he appeared 50 plus years before Mahaprabhu. He was a fully grown man when Mahaprabhu advented himself. And in this time period, also, Sri Advaita Acharya was also very topmost and respected Brahmin. And in this part of Bengal where he is in, there was a lot of scholars that would go to study, to learn. And Advaita Acharya was respected as one of the elders in that Brahminical community. He had carried a lot of street credit, if you want to say, with the Brahminical community. And people would kind of excuse a lot of things that they would see, of course, because they would often see him associating with Haridas Thakur, which for someone who would be considered untouchable being a Muslim birth, a lot of people would question, why, you are a top Paka Brahmin, why are you associating with someone like that? Didn't bother Advaita Acharya in the slightest, because as we will get into later, he was going based off actual scriptural injunction on how to associate with devotees. Now, he, like I said, as I mentioned, he was a loud personality, very powerful voice, very headstrong, steadfast in his devotion. And as he's looking around at the state of Nadia, he's seeing people following quote-unquote dharma. They're following their prescribed duties. He's seeing brahmanas doing different sacrifices. However, the caveat being he's noticing that a lot of the things in the Brahminical culture and others around him, they're doing demigod worship. They're doing everything on the basis of karma kanda, fruitive activities. And as we can understand, are fruitive activities beneficial for spiritual life? No. This is the equivalent of, let's say, if Advaita Acharya was in the temple room right now, sitting, chanting his Gayatri or chanting his japa, just watching people come into the temple to see the deities. He would watch everyone come up to the deities, bring out a nice degree, bring out a nice new job like diploma, money in the donation box, and leave. Essentially, everything was ritualistic. There was no actual devotion, and it was getting deteriorated. And this actually enraged him internally, to the point where it's like, manifest my Mahavishnu form, summon the Sudarshan Chakra. I'm just going to put an end to this right now. Unleash the Sudarshan Chakra. Problem solved. They're all liberated because it's my Sudarshan Chakra. They will all go back to the spiritual world. I don't have to worry about anything. But that's not the goal. And he, of course, understood this. And he understood that I don't want to just give them liberation. I want them to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, instead of summoning his Sudarshan Chakra and just decapitating everyone within an entire however many kilometer radius of Shantipur, no, he didn't do the yada 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 masya. I'm going to descend and just put an end to this. This is often, if you want to think about this, there's another in the Judeo-Christian sphere. There's the concept of God being one who smite. So he could have easily manifested this aspect of the Supreme. all-powerful smite. I'm going to put the fear of God in them. And then they will worship God. But ultimately, he is Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu can't give prema. He can give liberation, and that is nice, up to a point. He can get us to, at least Vaikuntha, but Advaita Acharya didn't want to give them just that. He wanted them to experience prema, the highest possible love, the highest possible relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And who can give prema? Mahaprabhu. Very good. Specifically, Mahaprabhu is the Lord's devotee. So at this point, Advaita says, I need the Lord to descend. I cannot give prema, but I know who can. So at this point, he then goes forward and he begins to worship Shalagram Shila on the banks of the Ganges with tulsi leaves. Tulsi manjari sahita ganga jhale nivarvi seve krishna mahakuthale hunkara karoye krishna avishesha teje yedvani brahmananda bhedi vaikunta the bhaje. This is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Adi Kanta, 281 to 82. But translation reads, he, Advaita Acharya, incessantly served Lord Krishna with the help of Tulasi Manjari and Ganges water. Being empowered by the strength of Lord Krishna, he roared loudly. The sound of his loud roars penetrated the coverings of this material universe and resounded in Vaikuntha. So think about that. His calls, like, I'm going straight to the source. The Lord will hear my cry. And this way, he would continuously worship the Shalagram Shila non-stop. And through this worship, he was able to summon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Samanvi, you want to read?
What did he roar? What did he roar? The name of the Lord or what?
Yes, roaring constantly, and then I'm actually going to give us a prayer that
Okay.
Advaita Acharya sings towards the end. So, Samanvi, would you like to please read this verse and translation?
Se kale Shri Advaita Karina Aradhana Dhanhara Nankare Kala Krishna Akarsana. At that time, Shri Advaita was earnestly worshipping him. Advaita attracted him with his loud calls.
So, Sri Advaita Acharya, he is one of the primary reasons. And obviously, there's a little plug for our, every Wednesday we read the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's actually 6 different reasons that Mahaprabhu descends. But Sri Advaita Acharya is one of the main reasons why we have Sri Srinivas Gauranatha Raja on the altar. If it were not for these incessant calls for the Lord, we would not have Mahaprabhu. So we have everything to owe to Sri Advaita in gratitude for allowing Mahaprabhu to then descend into the material world and then to give us, of course, the Mahamantra. And of course, we understand Krishna, when he descends, he doesn't descend as himself. He descends as a devotee, i.e., he is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. That is why he has a golden complexion. Now, that is why he is so important to us. We know who he is. We know why he matters. But now, of course, this is the fun part of appearance days. Rather than just read, learn lessons, learn why we don't smite brahmanas, we just ask for Mahaprabhu to teach them better. We're going to talk about some pastimes. We're going to talk about a few of his pastimes, how he carried himself through his devotional life in the material world, in Shantipur on the banks of the Ganga. Now, what is something that we like to do a lot during the month of Kartik? Chant. Navarasakam, okay. A more general, like specific, like house programs. Yes. Thank you, Max. So, Advaita Acharya, he is the original, he's the OG home program devotee, the non-but. So, even like I mentioned, he was on this earth 50 years prior even to Mahaprabhu. And constantly, he would invite devotees to his home. He would invite Srivas Thakur. He would invite Haridas Thakur, and they would have Krishna Katha. And as you remember, he is Acharya. He has that title of Acharya. He has studied Vedanta. He is well versed in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are all the perfect tools in which he can then naturally talk Krishna Katha like it's nobody's business. And people will come to listen to Krishna Katha. One of those personalities who would often come to listen to him is Mahaprabhu's older brother, Vishwarup. And he became so inspired to the point where, of course, he ends up taking sannyas. Remember that point for later. We are going to circle back to Vishwarup's sannyas in a pastime regarding Advaita Acharya. But, so this is something that whenever you have a home program, make sure you have a picture of the Pancha Tattva present in the home. Why? Because it is because of Advaita Acharya. We want to follow in that mindset, in that mood. Anytime you invite someone to your home, honor the Panchatattva, honor Advaita Acharya, because he sets the gold standard. You invite people to your home.
And here.
Down here. No. You get hearing aids, Prabhu.
Speak in the microphone.
So,
There you go.
oh, feel bad for anyone who's like right by the. Sorry.
Too loud.
Too loud? So see, happiness and distress. The material world, it's just right for the back, it's too strong for those in the front. There's no happiness in this material world unless you're at, what's our address? Thank you, Oscar. So, but this is the mentality that we want to have. When you invite people in, you want to talk katha, and you want to refer to the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or literature in pursuance of those versions. So obviously, can you read through the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in one home program? No, but luckily Srila Prabhupada has made it digestible. He's given us a purport to each verse, and then of course also we can even read chapters at the beginning of most of the chapters in the Bhagavatam. You have a chapter summary, which reads a little bit like a storybook. And of course, we have Krishna book itself, which is a beautiful condensation of the 10th canto in a beautiful story form. And this way, it's perfectly built for Krishna Katha. So next home program, Krishna book, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, just like Advaita Acharya. Now, let's talk a little bit about Advaita Acharya specifically and a couple of his pastimes. Now, one pastime involves Advaita Acharya subverting Vedic etiquette. So, as I mentioned earlier, Advaita Acharya is 50 plus years older than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Vedic etiquette, it is customary and proper that younger persons give due respect to the elderly. I feel that also translates for the most part in Western culture, but it's kind of deteriorated and that kind of showcases Kali Yuga. But in general, it's considered polite. You show respect to your elders. You provide them the due respect as a guru. But for Advaita Acharya, he did not like this. In fact, there are multiple verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which are describing he does not like the fact that Mahaprabhu bows down and gives him full dandavats and worships his feet. Because in his mind, he's like, no, I called you down here so that I could bow down to you. Why are you doing this to me? And he's like, I want to worship you. But Mahaprabhu was following proper Vedic etiquette. And he would not let Advaita Acharya worship him under any circumstance. So, Advaita Acharya hatches an idea. It's like, okay, I am going to make the Lord mad at me. Then, in sheer anger, he will chastise me, and by default, he will have to take the position of guru, and then I will be his subordinate. So, he thought, what pisses Mahaprabhu off more than anything? Anyone want to take a guess? What angers the Lord?
Well, this isn't a guess.
Okay, so, I think, yes. Does anyone want to take a guess before I know you know the answer? Oscar. That's up there. There's something that will just straw on the camel's back, this instant snap.
I would say like the Mayavad philosophy.
Oh, I think still your guess, yes.
Yes.
But, so, Advaita Acharya said, aha, I know impersonalism angers the Lord because it is the exact opposite reason for why he is manifested. He has come to disband all this nonsense. He is here to teach Prema, to how to love the Lord as the supreme person, to have a relationship with the Lord, not to sparkle for eternity and then inevitably fall back down. So, Advaita Acharya began to sit in and listen to many different Mayavad philosophers and sannyasis. And he would just listen. However, this is kind of like the equivalent of, let's say, the mayor of Orlando would start regularly coming in and sitting in for Sunday programs. If anyone wants to write a letter to the mayor's office and invite them, they'd be greatly appreciated. But that would be like, that's essentially the equivalent. A well-known, respected person in the community coming and attending something, word would spread out. Pretty soon, you'd probably see on local like Orlando news, what's it, Fox 35, NBC, or I don't know what's TV anymore. But you'd see it in the news, like Orlando mayor or ex-personality attends Krsna temple every Sunday. Word gets out. And eventually, word gets out that Sri Advaita Acharya, a highly respected Vaishnava Brahmin, is listening to Mayavad philosophy talks. Through the grapevine, along the banks of the Ganga, it eventually floats its way down into the ear of Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu snaps. He just looks at Nityananda Prabhu. We're going to Shantipur. So they begin to traverse the banks of the Ganga, heading from Nadia down south to Shantipur, to Sri Advaita's house. And then as soon as they see his house and they see that Advaita Acharya is home, Mahaprabhu, boom, he bursts through the door, scans the room instantly, locks eyes with Advaita Acharya, and then instantly he starts kicking him. He's like, Advaita, what are you doing? He's kicking. He's like, are you gone mad? And then the entire time, Advaita Acharya, he is smiling. He is laughing. He has tears of joy rolling down his face. He's like, finally, I've been waiting so long for you to take the position of Guru, that I can finally serve you and rectify and learn from my mistakes. And then also, of course, he's having the lotus feet of the Lord touch him. So,
When you say
twofold.
kick him, Prabhu, it's literally kicking or like?
Literally kicking.
Okay.
So full on kick, you are going to feel it, especially if you're being kicked by a 7-foot tall incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're gonna feel it. And Advaita felt it. And what did he feel? Transcendental bliss. And this is how he was able to subvert Vedic expectations. I know I am 50 years your senior and you should be respecting and worshiping me, but I want to serve you. I want to learn from you. You are my supreme master. Finally, you are able to give me this mercy. So this is one way that he was able to subvert and actually serve Mahaprabhu instead of the other way around. Now, as I mentioned earlier, even before Mahaprabhu advented himself in Navadvip, Advaita Acharya would regularly have home programs, talking Krishna Katha, chanting with fellow Vaishnavas. One of those personalities was Haridas Thakur. Now, as we mentioned, Haridas Thakur was Muslim born. So for the Brahminical caste and for the Vaishnavas of that time, unfortunately, they were not viewing him properly. They were viewing him based on the creed of his birth. It's like, we cannot associate you. You're practically untouchable. You can't even go into the Jagannath temple. But Advaita Acharya is actually versed in Shastra. He doesn't look at it blanket, like, you're a Brahmin, you're a Vaishya, you're a Kshatriya, you're a Shudra, you're an untouchable. No. He looked at the actual qualifications of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur is known for doing what constantly?
Home program?
Whole program? Oh. I mean, that would explain like why he's not bedecked in jewels. All the money's going out now. What would he do constantly, non-stop? Chanting. That's why he's referred to as the Namacharya. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. Chanting the holy names of the Lord non-stop. A japa addict, if you will. This ultimately made him the purest of Vaishnavas. And in fact, Advaita Acharya, at one point, now Haridas Thakur was actually worried. He was taking the position of a humble devotee. Ultimate humility. It's like, no, don't associate with me. People will look at you, your reputation will be ruined. I don't want to bring that on you. And Advaita Acharya's response to this, for those of you who are curious, this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila 3:21 and 22, but he says, "My dear Haridas, do not be afraid. I shall behave strictly according to the principles of the revealed scriptures. Feeding you is equal to feeding 10 million brahmanas. Therefore, accept the Shraddha." So, that is the position that Advaita Acharya accepted. He is coming from an actual position of Shastra, understanding the qualities of Haridas Thakur were not by his birth, but by his devotion. And in fact, actually, Srila Prabhupada gives some commentaries in the purports of these verses, and he actually links it very much so to the initial starting days of ISKCON, where I have all of these American and European boys and girls that I'm initiating them. I'm giving them second initiation. I'm giving them the status of a Brahmin. And there are now in India, some people say, why are you doing this? And it's just because they have accepted this position. They have the purity in their heart. It doesn't matter that they were born in the West, that they're Yavans and Malechas. They have accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that instantly qualifies them. So that is the position that you should take when you are looking at someone as a Vaishnava. You don't look at them by, oh my gosh, he's riddled in student debt. He's driving a PT Cruiser that's practically breaking down. Meanwhile, I see someone rolling up in a very nice Rolls Royce. They've got all this stuff from Lloyd Bazaar, Gangotri, gold pleated chadar. That is a Paka Brahmin who's come to the temple. No, you look at the quality. Are they chanting the holy names? Are they reading Shastra? Are they following the order of Guru? Are they devoted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement? That is how you can identify the purity of a Vaishnava. That is how Advaita Acharya was able to understand the true position of Haridas Thakur. Now, okay, good. We're doing good on time. Excellent. I've got more stories. Who has the mic? Dana. Would you like to read? This one is just this translation for me.
Sure. Therefore the Lord delivered love.
Thereafter.
Thereafter the Lord delivered love of Krishna to his mother, Sachadeti, nullifying her offense at the feet of Advaita Acharya. Thus there was a meeting with Advaita Acharya, who later had a vision of the Lord's universal form.
All right, story time. How on earth could Mother Sachi, the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, possibly be at fault, possibly have created offense? Well, this goes into, so this pastime is actually elaborated more in Adi Lila in 1710. There's this specific verse, but this is the section where it expands on this. But this is a rare instance where Mahaprabhu actually manifests himself fully as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in a private gathering at the home of Srivas Thakur, they, after performing kirtan, Mahaprabhu decided, okay, we're in a very private, secluded gathering. These devotees this is kind of like the Lord has obviously disguised himself as a devotee. I'm not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm just a devotee. But in the room, it's kind of like, yeah, but we know you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can't hide it from us. So this is one instance where the Lord actually said, okay, we're in a secluded gathering in Srivasa's home. I am going to give you guys what you want this one time. So he actually takes a seat on the altar. And then he allows his devotees to actually fully worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are able to perform full arti, and he manifests as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in doing so, he begins to give everybody a benediction. Everyone comes up, asks different benedictions. Most of them are asking the obvious, please, may we always have love and devotion for you. May you always reside in our hearts. Word to be known, that's probably the most ideal thing. You have the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ask for a benediction. Don't ask for a nice car. Don't ask him for you to eliminate your debt. Ask him for devotion. Ask him for bhakti. That's something he will give freely. If he gives other things, usually he's mischievous and he'll kind of like give it with a little caveat, like, cool, I'll give you all this. But Krishna is known to take away stuff from devotees who he truly favors. So be careful if you ask the Lord for a nice car, a nice house, and yada yada. He might give it to you, only for him to take it away. Or it's like, very nice house. I will give it to you. 10 years later, I expect you to make that a temple, and you can live in the small house on the side of the street. So be careful for asking for the Supreme Lord for material goods, but ask him for spiritual goods, you will receive it like a broken fire hydrant, unlimited. So everyone's asking for this, and then they start asking for other benedictions for others. Like, please give Mother Sachi your eternal love and devotion so that you may forever reside in her heart. And he said, Mahaprabhu said, no, I will not. In fact, she is an offender, and she does not deserve my bhakti. She does not deserve my love. And then everyone's looking around, what? Mukunda looks back for no. And everyone's freaking out, like, that's your mom. She's one of the purest souls in this entire universe. How could you not give, the math is not mathing again. And then everyone's distraught, but then he continues to elaborate. He said, she has committed an offense at the feet of Advaita Acharya. And I will not, however, I will give my devotion, but not until she nullifies this offense and rectifies her mistake that she committed towards Advaita Acharya. And then everyone's thinking, like, what did she do? It's like, we have a pretty good document of everything she's done. She's done everything by the book. She's a proper Vaishnavi. So, remember at the beginning, when I talked about the original home programs, who was one of the personalities who visited the home of Advaita Acharya to listen to him talk? Yes, Prabhu. Vishvarup. And he went on to take sannyas. So, Mother Sachi didn't verbally say, like, oh, why would you took my darling boy from me. But she thought about this negative thought towards Advaita Acharya. You have taken my son from me. And now Mahaprabhu, of course, also Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. So she has this in her mind. She doesn't even speak it. But of course, Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything. So he knew what was going on in the mind of his mother. So therefore, the only way you can nullify this is by bowing down and worshiping the feet of Advaita Acharya. But if there's one thing we've learned about Advaita Acharya from the previous pastime about him and Mahaprabhu, specifically rolling on the Mayavad incident, Advaita Acharya does not want to be worshipped. He does not like it. So he's like, no. Mother Sachi, you cannot worship me. No. Please, I should be worshiping you. It's because of you that my prayers were answered. I cannot do this. So Mahaprabhu said, just wait. He tells his mother, just wait. So then, of course, after doing Harikatha and worshipping Mahaprabhu in the home of Srivas Thakur, Kirtan breaks out. Because of course Kirtan breaks out. If you have a home program, Kirtan should be on the docket and should be one of the primary things right next to Krishna Katha and Prasadam. If you don't have those three aspects of a home program, you don't have a home program. So, Krishna Katha, Kirtan, Prasadam. In any order that you see fit, but realistically you want to do Prasadam at the end, because otherwise try dancing with a full belly of Prasadam. So, Kirtan breaks out, and everybody starts singing and dancing in ecstasy. And of course, the Panchatattva are dancing. Advaita Acharya goes into complete transcendental bliss. He doesn't even know what's going on, up to the point where he starts to display the ecstatic symptoms of Prema, and he collapses from exhaustion and sheer joy. At this point, Mahaprabhu indicates to his mother, Sachi Devi, go touch his feet. Because previously, Advaita Acharya would not let it happen. It would kind of be like if you try to go touch someone's feet, he's like, nope, bad. It's kind of like how, like, whenever I've seen, like, people try to go, like, when my Guru Maharaj, and they've tried to touch his feet, he's like, no, and he has his little stick. No. So, no touchy. So same thing, Advaita Acharya would be, no touchy. But if he's passed out of sheer ecstasy from Kirtan, this is the opportunity that Mother Sachi needed to actually then touch the lotus feet of Sri Advaita Acharya and rectify her mistake of thinking ill will towards him. For Swarup taking sannyas. And that is something that we should learn. Like the whole, if you want to take the moral of the story, the lesson to be learned is that we should be very careful when it comes to offending a Vaishnava. And that's not just meaning like, you took my parking spot. Now I have to walk 2 parking spaces to get to the temple. Or you cut in front of me in line, and then you get angry at them, or so on and so forth. But it can even mean the mentality. We talked in previous classes about how the mind can manifest your reality if you act on it. So the seeds can always start up here. So if you're conscious about what's being planted up here, and you're just keeping track of what your mind is doing, and as soon as you sit, let's say, oh man, they're wearing the same kurta as I am. Take that thought, bury it, bash it with a head, and then you go up to that Vaishnava and it's like, I love your kurta. We're on the same wavelength. So you have to, that's where you start when you think about avoiding offenses to the Vaishnavas. You don't just start with actions, but you also think your mentality. Any ill thoughts, ultimately they're not reflective on that person, they're reflective on you. So you have to be able to rectify those mistakes as you see them coming, just like Advaita Acharya and Mother Sachi. And luckily, of course, you will have people who can help you along the way. So even though Mahaprabhu was like, no, I will not give her my devotion, he gave her a way to rectify so that he could give her his love. Now, another thing to think about Advaita Acharya, how he carried himself. So of course, we remember that he's obviously, yes, I'm the senior to Gauranga, but I don't want to be. He would say this verse. We'll actually say this verse all together. Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Chaitanya Das, Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Tandra Das Hera Das. Everyone say that louder. Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Chaitanya Das, Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Tandra Das Hera Das. Translation. I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya and a servant of his servants. This is what you should carry, this mentality. The whole dasanu dasanu das, the servant of the servant of the servant mentality. This is how a Vaishnava in the Gaudiya Sampradaya should carry themselves. I am a servant of Mahaprabhu and I am a servant of his servants. Who is the servant of Mahaprabhu in this temple right now?
We all
Prabhupada?
Yes, all of us and Prabhupada. Specifically, Prabhupada is a servant of Mahaprabhu. We are servants of the servant. Always take the low road in this instance. You want to have this mentality constantly in your mind. Because if you do that, then Mahaprabhu will be extremely pleased with you. Now, Advaita Acharya does not only have relations with Mother Sachi and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Haridas Thakur, but other personalities as well. And one of the more amusing relationships that he has is not with Mahaprabhu. It is actually with Lord Nityananda. So there is, I believe it's, when I was in preparation for this class, I was listening to multiple different lectures on Advaita Acharya and going through reading. But I was listening to a lecture from His Holiness Chandramali Swami on the glories of Advaita Acharya. And he gave a lot of really good one-liners, which hopefully I'll be able to use one later. But one of the instances is when he's describing the Panchatattva, and he breaks down each personality. He, of course, refers to Mahaprabhu. He is devotion itself. He is the Supreme Lord. And then he talks about Advaita Acharya. He's loud, he's boisterous, he is headstrong. But he is also humble. You have Gadadhar Pandit, very reserved and quiet, very to the point. And then Srivas is just, I'm here to serve. How can I facilitate? And then there's Nityananda. And Chandramali says, Nityananda, the best way to describe, he's a madman. And as we understand, he's Balaram. Balaram kind of does what he wants. So Nityananda Prabhu, of course, as he described, he carries himself around. He has a straw in his teeth. He pretends to be a cowherd boy. So for lack of better terms, he's a madman. But he is mad with love for Krishna. He is mad with Krishna Prema. Now, there is a, mad about me? He's probably mad at me. not mad about me. Now, there's actually a very beautiful pastime between between Nityananda and between Advaita Acharya, and this comes from Madhya Lila. So this is specifically 3.93 through 96. But this involves Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. They went down to Shantipur to visit Advaita Acharya. And of course, whenever someone comes to your home, you give them offerings. So he welcomed them, and then of course he had him and Sita Devi, they prepared a nice elaborate feast. So they came, they sat down in his home, and they began to eat. And they're eating, and they're eating. And then Nityananda looks at Advaita Acharya, and he looks at his plate, and he looks back at Advaita Acharya, and he just said, Advaita, you should take this plate away. Just take it all away. And then he grabs some rice from his plate, and he has only like a handful of grains, not even like a spoonful or a palmful, just like a little bit. And he throws it at the floor at Advaita's feet. And then a couple of them like just land on Advaita Acharya's feet, and he's just standing there. And then as soon as Advaita Acharya sees that the rice hit him, and then he just sees like Nityananda Prabhu like pseudo angry, just like Advaita Acharya begins to burst out in joy and starts dancing on the spot because he has been touched by the remnants of Lord Nityananda's Mahaprasada. What better benediction in this world could be that than having these grains of rice that Nityananda Prabhu himself was eating? So he burst out into dancing. And this is sort of the joking pseudo relationship. They have a very fun, boisterous relationship. In fact, there's even instances when you read about them and they're taking bath in the Ganga. And you would have all the devotees going in. Now, normally when you think about, even if you, let's say, put a National Geographic documentary, they're going in, they're flying in. Let's say we just had the Mahakumbha Mela. You've seen all the hundreds of millions of people going to there to bathe in the waters. They go in, they do their 3 dips, they offer lamps. It's very reverential. It's like, oh my gosh. Think about all like the Instagram social influencers like filling it. It's so spiritual. It's so formal. It's so like ancient. Wow, this is amazing. I want to practice this. In reality, if you want to at least look at our sampradaya, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, how do we carry ourselves? Of course, you can always go in, take your 3 dips, Ganga, Ganga, Ganga. That's nice. But if you actually look at how Mahaprabhu and his associates, they actually sport in the water. And the 2 biggest culprits of this are Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. Because they would have tsunami level water fights. And this is, remember, this is a 60, 70 plus year old man who's splashing back and forth with a young 20, 30 year old man. And they're just enjoying the waters of the Ganga in this way. So, oftentimes you will hear me say, like, swimming is a devotional sport. It is. Relish the association with devotees, and you're relishing it in a very sacred place. And also, it brings joy to the Ganga as well. Not to say that also make sure you do your honor. If it's time, place, and circumstance, it's not that if you see a bunch of pilgrims going to the banks of the Ganga, they're offering their oblations into the water. That doesn't mean you go cannonball right in between everybody and then splash down. No. Time, place, and circumstance. But if you're a sport, let's say you're in Mayapur and you're just going to the banks and you're just there for fun, well, splash, enjoy it. There's something actually that when I was growing up in the youth tours that I did they were originally Ratatvaja Swami's programs called the Boys Summer Trip. There's one thing that he would always say to all of us as students, and then that's something once we took the program over from him and we took all the boys ourselves out across North America. The main key ingredient that Ratatvaja Swami left with us to teach onto these young boys, like from 10 to 16, Krishna consciousness is fun. Period. If it weren't fun, why would we do it? If it's not, Krishna consciousness is not fun, then it just becomes ritualistic. And then it just becomes, yep, I wake up, chant my rounds, Dandava Pranam, Samsara Dava Nadalida Loka Jai, okay, Shadam. It's supposed to be joyous. It's supposed to bring joy into your heart. Why do you think Nityananda Prabhu was so mad and joking all the time? because he was enjoying his bhakti yoga. We should follow, not imitate, but follow in that same manner. Enjoy it. Think about later when the curtains open for Arti. When those curtains open, and you start to hear the mridanga go, and you hear the kartals going, you hear everybody singing, and you start seeing a few people start to shuffle their feet a little bit, shuffle some more, start dancing, engage the body, let loose. I promise you, no one in here is going to judge. And if Advaita Acharya can just go into full dancing ecstasy in front of the Supreme Personality of God himself, who are you afraid of from dancing and just enjoying yourself? That is the point of Krishna consciousness. That is the mood that the Panchatattva imbues in all of us. Now, when we think about all these different pastimes from Advaita Acharya, we have to really grasp the fact that everything we are doing today, at least in the specific context of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, is because of him. Of course, he is following within this line of Vaishnavism through our Sampradaya. His spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, also initiated Ishvara Puri, who initiated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we can always understand that, yes, this is existing all the way back to Krishna himself, going down through this line. But for our specific practice of Bhakti Yoga, the Hare Krishna movement, it's kick-started. Well, I guess you could technically say it's those Brahmins who are just doing demigod puja for the sake of benefiting everybody around. Like, oh, you need a marriage ceremony? Excellent. Let me bring up my here. Donations, thank you. Hari Om. Okay, you're married. Next ceremony? Excellent. I get to do more of the Shastra conjunctions. Excellent. Ritualistic. Rituals, at least most of them, aren't fun. But Mahaprabhu gave us a fun ritual to do, which is the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan, congregationally chanting the holy names of the Lord. That started because of Advaita Acharya's loud roaring like a lion, constantly worshiping the Lord in his form of Shaligram Shila with Tulsi leaves and Ganga water. Because of that loud roaring, the Lord basically, oh, I can't do it. I have to respond to this call. And that's another lesson to learn from Advaita Acharya. The Lord will respond to his devotee's call. Granted, if that call is made with true sincerity and devotion. It's not just that, oh man, this person rear-ended me. Krishna, help. No, Krishna's like, no, you have your insurance for a reason. Call them. But if you're in true need of the Lord, which should be at all times, not just in times of distress, but just to experience pure joy, that is what we should imbue when we are following in the footsteps of Advaita Acharya. Because remember, he could have given all of these Brahmins that he was seeing in Bangladesh and in India and all throughout the land, like, I can give them liberation. I can give them moksha. I'm Mahavishnu. I'm Sadashiva. I can freely do this. Or I could just throw my Sudarshan Chakra and reset the board, and then yada yada hidarmasya, boom, religion has been reestablished. But no, I want them to have prema. I can't do that, but my Lord Krishna, the original source, he can. So he began to chant, and so here we are now. So that's the mentality, the mood, the mindset that we want to imbue. All right, so before I open up for questions or comments or any other, if anyone wants to share any other beautiful pastimes of Advaita Acharya, I'm going to ask that we all, once again, chant the mantra that Advaita Acharya would incessantly chant. Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Chaitanya Dasa, Chaitanya Dasa Muni, Tandra Dasa. Okay. So, hold on. If you remember, and go back. Come on, guys. Hold on. All right. What does the last two words say?
Loud call.
So what was that? That was a pathetic excuse for a loud call. I want you to recite that verse with the roar of a lion. Well, actually, technically, if you ever heard a lion roar, it sounds kind of funny. So like a roar of a tiger. Let's go more of that. Roar this verse. Imbue this with your heart. Carry this all the way to Gaura Arti. And then when it comes for Gaura Arti, embody this when we chant and we dance. So one more time from the bottom. So whenever, if you're thinking about like in choir, when you teach like vocals, you don't sing from up here. Use the diaphragm. Fill those lungs from the bottom to the middle to the top, and then belt it out like nobody cares. Chaitanya Rasa Muni, Chaitanya Rasa, Chaitanya Rasa Muni, Tanya Rasa Rasa. Thank you. That is much more like it. That's the mindset that you want to have. Although if someone wants to be madman, like Nityananda Prabhu, and like start pulling jokes, just make sure you're following in the footsteps and not doing exactly like Nityananda Prabhu. But, or if anyone wants to have like a water fight later, I think, let's save that for when we go to Rath Yatra, like a Daytona Beach Rath Yatra, which is coming up. So save the water fights for later, but I will hold like the last like 10 minutes or so for any questions, comments, or anyone wants to share their reflections on Advaita Acharya. I saw a few hands, so we have a couple mics. Sunil Prabhu, we'll start with you and then we'll pass.
Hare Krishna Guruji, very nice class. So, any idea for how many days Advaita Acharya prayed to the Supreme Lord? And then what was the indication he got when his prayers were like
Yes.
answered? Yeah.
So let me see if I had a specific number of days written down in my notes. We don't talk about my philosophy. That pisses off the Lord. I don't have the exact date. I do believe it was around a week or so, like a fortnight, but constantly. But it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't just like sit down 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Jai, the Lord is here. So, multitude of factors in terms of multi-day. And then for the specific signs, would anyone like to read about what was the moon condition like when Mahaprabhu appeared? Full moon?
Eclipse.
Eclipse. Thank you. That's an eclipsed moon. And then at that point, the indicators were there. Oh, okay. I thought I thought I did pretty good on time, but yes. And then what was the other? Or
I think that's
okay, yes. We'll go yes, Vishnumoto and then Nisha.
Advaita Acharya Prabhu is an incarnation as a devotee. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself is a devotee. Nityananda is his expansion as a devotee, and Advaita is Bhaktavatar is the word that's used in
Yes.
Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, you know, as Americans, we know we have rights. I got my rights, man. Did you know that incarnations of Godhead also have rights? Yes, it's true. This is a purport by Srila Prabhupada in the chapter Glories of Advaita Acharya. All the different incarnations of Lord Vishnu have the right to play the roles of servitors of Lord Krishna by descending as devotees. When an incarnation gives up the understanding of his godhood and plays the part of a servitor, he enjoys a greater transcendental mellow taste than when he plays the part of the Supreme Personality of God.
Yes. That's the one thing that Krishna cannot manifest. He has to experience is, and I happily will do so, but I want to know, why is Radharani so addicted to serving? I want to feel that. I want to feel that love, and I want to experience that devotion. And then, of course, as we understand, all the Panchatattva, many of Mahaprabhu's associates are all incarnations of the Supreme in different aspects, and the Lord's different devotees, wanting to come down and incarnate as a devotee. Because that's where you can draw the most supreme type of bliss. So thank you, Prabhu. And then I believe Vishnu Prabhu, you have...
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your eloquent presentation. Very strong. When Advaita Acharya didn't pulverize his region, is also because he wanted to have a continuation. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came so he can save future, the whole Kali. So
Yes.
He made this also this point on not pulverizing everybody, but so Mahaprabhu comes and gives the opportunity to others, up to today that they're receiving this opportunity.
Yes, and then actually, so as we mentioned also, he is Acharya, he's received this title. He's all, like we mentioned, he is well versed in Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, the four Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam. So he knows all the Shastra, and from the Shastra we can understand Mahaprabhu is a secret incarnation. He is predicted in the Shastra. There are verses that reference his appearing. There's even a pastime in the Mahabharata that references his arrival in Kali Yuga. So of course, Advaita Acharya being well versed in Shastra, he also knows, I know the Lord is going to come here, but I need to make it so. I need to make it happen. So yes, thank you, Prabhu. And any other, yes, Blush.
Thank you for the class. Very nice. One thing I wanted to this thing that I remember in this yuga, like what for Chatur Yuga actually. So Mahaprabhu only comes like 1 in 1,000, where only original Krishna comes, and the Vrindavan Krishna comes. So I remember in other time frames he comes as God Narayan. Is that the God Narayan comes instead of Mahaprabhu, right?
I
Like,
would
are you familiar
defer
with that?
to anyone else who know the specific answer to the question. I don't know off the
Okay.
top of my head, and I'd rather not speculate. So same way, I'd rather
Okay.
come from a position of Shastra. So I will humbly say that I don't know the answer.
Okay, so that one, Prabhu, so like when we were talking about this, so once in like 1,000,
Yes.
one day of Brahma, so like we know the expansion of Krishna comes, that's only 1 day of Brahma, the Vrindavan Krishna, original Krishna comes, and only in that specific this thing, since original Krishna came at that point of time, original Mahaprabhu comes only 1 in 1,000 Mahayugas. So other than that, we have God Narayan who gives us the liberation but not the love. So this is a very, very special 4 yugas I would call.
Yes, and actually, we should think, when thinking about it, of course, when we think about the Yuga cycle, Satya, Treta, and even though interesting enough, Treta and Dwarpa are actually fixed because of the numerical count, but we have Satya, Treta, Dwarpa, Kali, and then even if we think about in Kali Yuga, which started 5,000 years ago, only about 500, although that number should realistically be edited, it's probably around 560 or 580. Pretty soon in 20, 30 years, we should be starting to say, then 600 years ago, Mahaprabhu manifested, but still, that is relatively recent in the grand scheme of history. That's a split second ago. So we are technically still well within Gaura Yuga, this little mini 10,000 year buffer zone that's kind of staving away the effects of Kali Yuga because we have Mahaprabhu's advent of the Mahamantra and the Hare Krishna movement, which is kind of slowing the tides of Kali Yuga as it continues to push and try to encroach in. But luckily, we should count ourselves lucky, take advantage more than anything. That's why so many different personalities descended into Gaura Lila, to take advantage of the fact that Mahaprabhu advented himself. So this is our chance to be a devotee and really take advantage of this Bhakti Yoga, of this Mahamantra, which doesn't always come around every single Yuga cycle in this form. This is possibly the easiest ticket back to Godhead that we could have ever asked for. And we are lucky enough that Srila Prabhupada has been able to bring it to the Western countries so that we can take part in it. Because there's so many other things that could potentially send us off that path. And there's actually one, I mentioned it earlier, what pisses off Mahaprabhu the most? What makes him angry? Impersonalism, Mayavad philosophy. So if you ever come across that, I really love the way how Chandramali Swami describes Mayavad philosophy. He says, it's foolosophy. So there you can just take that in your pocket. If you ever hear anyone trying to spout some philosophy, like, it's foolosophy. Because even then we can understand, even if you get impersonal liberation, great! I get to sparkle for X millennia in the Brahmajyoti. But then even then, you actually, in Shastra, it says you are at risk of coming back down to the material world. So rather than waste your time in trying to think that you are the Supreme Lord, which you are not, we understand from Shastra that we are part and parcel. Advaita Acharya and the Panchadhara, they are the Supreme Lord. We are part and parcel. You can understand you are a spark of the Supreme, but you're not the whole. Understanding that you're a spark gives you that mentality of a servant, that mentality of Advaita Acharya, and then from there, you can go back to Godhead and get beyond even liberation. You can get Prema, which is ultimately what we want to strive for. So there you go. That's what I wanted. That's what I had to remember. Like I got to remember. Chandramauli Swami, Mayavads, fools, philosophy.
Prabhu, just one last thing I wanted to ask. Like, you know, like
100%.
one of the like in the one of the critics' comments I read in like YouTube, like when I was like doing
Oh, there's your first mistake.
this thing, it rose like a doubt in my head.
The internet's a dangerous place to move,
It
especially on
is
YouTube comment
Prabhu, and
section.
then I read the comment and I was like, that thing has always been in my head, where like people say that like that person was specifically saying Mahaprabhu explicitly, like not explicitly, but sometimes he exhibited the opulence of Krishna, but none of this, like the other Gadadhar, Advaita, we say they are Mahavishnu and this thing. I don't hear stories of their like mystic opulence happening somewhere. Like we see their like devotee, like very humanly pastimes, but not any mystical. As like Mahavishnu, we expect like something like that Krishna's lifting Govardhan Hill or Mahaprabhu like doing something like crazy. So is there some like in Jatakarita or some pastimes like that kind of thing are there?
Well, for one, if you think about, let's say if you're looking at I'll use just a general example. Let's say we're looking at a teacher and you see like a student. Wow, that student knows everything. Like they're so smart. How could like you're looking at the accomplishments of the student, and then the student will say, well, that's all because of my teacher. So if we understand, and then there are, even within Shastra, like the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are instances where Mahaprabhu reveals his supreme nature. That's all because of Advaita Acharya. The Supreme Lord won't manifest if I just go outside and I ask some random hobo off the street, manifest the Supreme Lord. It might not even be awake. So, in order for the Lord to respond, He only responds to His devotee's call. Specifically, a devotee who's on the purest platform. So if Advaita Acharya is able to manifest Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu displays these supreme pastimes, granted not always because he's in the mood of a devotee, that defeats the purpose. The math adds up. If he's able to do that, you can understand his supremacy. And I believe we are ready to call out Chaitanya Das!